just, yeah, focus on your intention. And then, like you said, that's perfect. Okay, let's see. I'm going to start my review now. So, Missy, when you're editing this, now's the time to start. Okay, so as pretty much everybody here is aware, I like to review amateur books from Wattpad, and this is my very first from like just amateur books in general, but from Wattpad as well. Hang on, let me change this. A mere 40 minutes into the stream, I'm gonna edit all the way out, all of that out, so it's fine. The author won't even hear it. Anyways, I like to review books for amateurs, and it's not because I'm a talented writer or anything. I always review books under the position of a reader. I love reading. I've been a reader my whole life. I love books. I have a very wide range of what I like as far as genres go. Generally, if I'm attached to the characters or into the world building even, it's really though, it's the characters, right? Like that's what I like. But I love reading. Reading is my all-time favorite hobby, way more than writing, and I don't have a degree in literature, English, journalism, editing, any of that kind of crap. I don't have a degree whatsoever. I don't have any expertise. I started writing like 3 years ago. And I started like joining the writing community, and I started to realize like, oh, hey, I can like offer something back to this community, by reading their books and offering, some insight as a reader, not as a fellow writer. We were just talking yesterday in the stream about how it can be kind of hard to get advice from a writer instead of a reader, just because a writer has very specific feedback or maybe focuses on one thing, whereas a reader, that's your target audience. You want to know what they like, and how that blends with what you're trying to put out there. So that's how I like to read certain things. However, I have been, like again just writing for the last few years, and so I've learned a little bit, so what I contribute and what I like include in my review may be part of what I've learned as somebody who's kind of experimenting with writing, but the bulk of my feedback will be as a reader. So what I like to do is just review the basics, right? So I'll review kind of like what worked for the book and what didn't. Why did I like this book and what kind of made it struggle? Were there any missed opportunities? How was the character dynamics? Did I feel connected to the characters? Did it elicit an emotional response from me at any point? Was the setting phenomenal? Was the plot really interesting? Did I laugh? Did I cry? Did I get angry and frustrated where I was supposed to? Basically like just like as a reader, what were my thoughts? So that's what I like to do in these reviews, basically, is just offer insight as a reader, especially when I have when I'm like hooked. So I want people to know like, this is where you got me. Like, this is where I hooked. This is why I chose your book to review or take my time to read. My time is like crazy valuable to me. There's nothing more valuable to me than my time because I have so little of it. I am up from like 4:30 in the morning some days all the way to 9 o'clock at night, until I crash out in bed. And every single moment of that is filled with something productive. I'm reading, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm working, I'm doing something with my family. Like I'm not idle. So if I spent the time to read your book, then that means that it meant something to me. So anyways, I just kind of want to prep all of that for as far as like what to expect from me as a reviewer. If you're looking for a review, I also pride myself on my very honest feedback. You'll hear all the time from friends or fans or whatever, oh, I loved your book and this is what I really liked about it and this was so funny, blah, blah, blah. And they won't tell you the things that they didn't like about it because that's uncomfortable, right? But we don't grow by doing that. We don't grow as writers by just hearing how great things were. Yeah, you need to know what works for your book. You need to know what's good. And it is really, really encouraging to hear stuff that works for your book. But you need to also hear the things that I'm going to tell you why I hate it. No, like you need to sometimes we need to hear like, I didn't like this character and I feel like I was supposed to like them, but I didn't because this, and this. Or, you kept a lot of things I see a lot with the amateur books that I'm reading is people don't understand dialogue tags, which I was something that I learned like a whole year into writing my book or whatever. So I feel like there's just like certain things where it's like, oh yeah, I should change that. Oh yeah, I could work on that. Or that's very helpful. If we're trying to improve our writing, if we're trying to grow as writers, we need to hear that stuff. So I call what I do honey roasted, because the whole purpose of this, of reviewing your book, is to give you feedback, constructive feedback on your book. But there are a lot of people who do not respect all of the time and love that authors will put into their book, and they'll just roast the crap out of your book and say, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, you need to work on this, because they're coming from the position of like an editor. And meanwhile, I am a reader. I love books, and if it wasn't for all of the amazing authors, talented authors out there, my favorite hobby would not exist. So I adore authors. There's nobody I love more than authors, for everything that they do for me as a reader. So I'm definitely going to be sensitive to all of the time and energy that the author puts into their books during my review, and hope that it's reflected that, you, like a doctor, you care about your baby, and I want to make sure that your baby is taken care of too. So give it these vitamins, blah, blah, blah. So basically, I have a few different approaches based on the book, and I'll talk about different things per review based on what I think needs to be talked about. So without further ado, let's get into the book that I decided to review today. This is a Royal Road book. If anybody here is not familiar with Royal Road, it is an amateur it's an amateur website where anybody can post their book. I'm very, very new to it. I have not used it a lot. This is the first book I've read on Royal Road, actually. All the other books I've read have been on Wattpad. So I'm really excited to get into Royal Road a little bit more, but it's really fun. You can like review books or leave a review on books. You can leave comments on the books, on each chapter, I believe. And anyways, it's a great spot for people who are writing books to just get their books out there. And it's fun because it's free. You get to read books for free, which is just insane. So if you are a reader out there, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of books available for free online. And what's really cool is the authors will love you for reading their book, which is insane. Oh, and yes, Royal Road also does offer inline editorial suggestions, as I know Max uses those a lot. So anyways, Royal Road seems like a really great website. I think that the community is also pretty good. Like the writers seem very serious and focused about and love the craft of writing, which is really fun as compared to Wattpad, where it has kind of a reputation for being cheesy romance chick-lit type stuff. So Royal Road has been a lot of fun, because I think that there's a lot of really, really talented authors on there. In fact, a book I'm reading right now, a published work that I'm reading right now is from an author who came from Royal Road. So a lot of the authors on here are very, very talented, and I'm sure many of them will get published. Personally, I know several that I'm really thinking will be published one day, hopefully soon. Anyways, so that's the website. The book that I chose is this book you can see up on my screen, Empty Vessels, a Black Ridge Files novella. Really short book, definitely worth checking out on Royal Road. I don't know if it's available anywhere else. And the author on Royal Road is under the pen name Magus. Hang on. Right? Is that the right one? I thought I had it listed up there. Yeah, Magus. Magus. So that's their pen name. So if you guys are interested in reading it, I'm going to go ahead and post a link to it right now to check it out, and you guys can either agree or disagree with all of the things that I'm going to talk about. I'm not sure. I know I shared the link to the book a while ago. I don't think anybody has actually read it other than me, but it is so quick. It's like 11 chapters. Each chapter is only like 3,000 words long, if I had to guess, maybe less. It seemed I blew through it. It's such a quick read. Yeah, there's only 11 chapters. It's crazy. Very, very short. It's a novella, so it's really, really short, very exciting. So when I was selecting out of the list of books that were submitted for a review, I selected this one because the author had this kind of cute comment where they said, when I basically said like, hey, if you're interested in a review, comment here, and they said yes, but no, but yes, this terrifies me, but completed novella, Empty Vessels, and then provided a link. And then they said, I'm gonna hide under a blanket now, yay anxiety, which I thought was so cute, because I feel like requesting feedback on a book is really, really nerve-wracking. Like, that is your baby, and as much as you want people to provide you with feedback, it's so hard to hear sometimes. And sometimes, like, some people are really, really good at receiving feedback. I like to pride myself on being really receptive to feedback. Some stuff I don't listen to, but for the most part, I like to listen to the readers and, decide if and just kind of take it in as far as that's how it goes. It is really, really hard for a lot of people. It's really hard. So I totally get the anxiety. And it did make me kind of look into this a little bit closer, because I just liked that comment. And so I chose this one, and I always like to do kind of like an about the author as well in the beginning of this. So a little bit about the author is, I'll just read what he wrote. I go by Ink Magus most places. He, him pronouns. I started writing about 14. Writing around 14. So 14 years old. He's pushing 40 now. I've been a prolific reader of fantasy sci-fi since reading the original Aladdin from Arabian Nights when I was 8. Then I saw the movie Funny Farm at 14, in which Chevy Chase is trying to write a book through the movie. This, for some reason, made me realize I could write my own stories. I started with really awful Digimon, Lord of the Rings mashup fan fiction that is thankfully long or lost to time, before moving on to more original stories. Writing for me is a hobby I do just because I like telling stories. I have no great ambition to be professionally published or make it a career. I write things I would like to read myself, and I hope other people enjoy them. Not really looking for anything specific in feedback. Empty Vessels was a bit of an experiment, my first go at a first-person limited narration and the noir style. So anyways, that is basically everything that I have on this author. Seems very, very cool. And this is Empty Vessels is a noir detective style book, with obviously a fantasy aspect to it. The picture for some reason is so dark. I don't know if you guys can see it very well on here, but I love the cover. I love this cover so much. It is just so freaking cool. Matches the novella completely. I love it. This also piqued my interest, was the cover. I also like the bright bold yellow against the dark setting. The one thing that's missing from here is the author's name. I feel like Ink Magus belongs somewhere on the cover. Other than that, I don't have any feedback on it, but I do love the cover. The genres listed here on Royal Road are urban fantasy, non-human lead, drama, action, historical, mystery, low fantasy, male lead, supernatural, which was really awesome. I think that applied really greatly, but essentially I would call it a low fantasy noir detective story, which is what it was. And I think that I'm not a mystery person. I have like Murder on the Orient Express and like Sherlock Holmes in my library. Other than that, I don't have any mysteries, and I certainly don't have any noir detective stories. So that's another thing that I've actually always been interested in reading, but never actually picked up a book. I like the writing style of the like what they kind of satirize in on TV and stuff. Gender identity for a skeleton is tricky. I mean, male, like skeletons are either male or female too. Like they, like you can tell based on their anatomy still, even just down to the bones. And this character as well was used to be a man. He like died like 3 years before the story takes place and came back as a skeleton. So that is another reason why I chose this, just because it's a very interesting genre, right? I love fantasy. Low fantasy is also super interesting. I've read a bunch of low fantasy, but I've reviewed one low fantasy where it was like a vampire and or witch type of, or actually I've read a few low fantasy, I just realized. And they're all actually pretty good. So anyways, definitely something that I wanted to check out. So the summary, I read it and I was like, heck yes, I want to read this. So this is the summary. In the perpetually fog-shrouded streets of Black Ridge City, where humans and supernatural beings coexist in an uneasy truce, Samuel Faust, the city's only skeletal detective, takes on what appears to be a simple case: a grieving goblin widow seeking answers about her husband's mysterious death. But in Black Ridge, nothing stays simple for long, as Faust and his half-elven partner, Sylvia Cooper, follow a trail of hollow-eyed workers and suspicious diagnosis. They uncover a conspiracy that threatens the very essence of the city's non-human population. In this world where the dead don't always stay buried and the wealthy will pay any price for power, Faust will need more than his detective instincts to solve a case that cuts straight to the bone. I love that. No, Mr. Skeleton was Mr. Human, I'm pretty sure. Literally hollow-eyed. Yes, he has 0 eyes. And that's another thing. He's a skeleton, but he has certain senses. Like he can see, he can hear, he can talk, he can feel. He can't feel cold, but it's magic. So he's a skeleton. He can't eat or drink anything, but he does smoke, and somehow through smoking, the smoke goes down into his like rib cage and comes out of his like into his like torso and then out of his rib cage, which very cool imagery. It's magic. We're not going to think too much about it. I loved the details when it came to how the author described through the POV of it being a skeleton. I loved everything about it. I thought it was really, really cool. Very good. And yeah, so that's our summary. I think that's very intriguing. Great summary, great cover. Like I love it. I think it's awesome. When I started reading it, a bunch of things became like blaringly obvious about the book, and I'll get into that later. But I like to go over like the plot, the setting, the characters a little bit first before I dive into my what I love about it, what could use improvement. So the main character is Faust, the skeleton, right? He's a skeleton detective. He was a human. He died. For some reason, he didn't stay dead, and he came back as a skeleton and decided to keep on being a detective, which I think is really, really neat. Very, very fun. We don't actually get a lot on his personality, which is one of my criticisms of the book, is that I definitely want more on Faust. His partner, who is also on the cover of this, is Sylvia Cooper, his girl Friday. She's half elven, half human, which is apparently not very common in this world. And she's just like crazy, wicked smart. Faust, is he a skeleton because he made a deal? I don't know. And that's actually another thing that I wanted to know more about is, why did he come back when he's apparently the only skeleton that they see, right? Why did he come back? How does he feel about coming back? Is he afraid of being immortal forever? Is he afraid that he's never going to die? Is he angry? Is he sad? Did he have anybody in his life before he became a skeleton that, he wants? Did he have a wife? Did he have kids? Did he have friends? It does not say. We have nothing on that. That's one of my criticisms for sure. But what's good catch? What does Faust mean? Hang on. I'm going to look up name meaning. His name's Samuel Faust. Lucky or fortunate? I don't know. Faustian? Hold up. Oh, Faustian bargain. Oh, okay. Relating to or resembling Faust, a German astronomer and necromancer reputed to have sold his soul to the devil. Oh my goodness. I have never heard of that, but I'm guessing that that's not an accident for sure from the author. So that's very interesting. Thank you, Max and Text, for pointing that out. Anyway, so we have Sylvia Cooper, the really smart, really brave, really she's really quick-witted, partner that he works with to solve the mysterious cases. The name of their private investigative firm is Dead End. I think it was that what it is? I think it's Dead End. Dang it, I didn't write it down. It's like basically like it's last resort, like you're coming to us if you have nowhere else to go. Yeah, Dead End Investigations, which I think is really, really good. And a thing about this setting is that in this world, in this low fantasy world, in the city of Blackridge, there are humans living along, as it is low fantasy, there's humans living alongside goblins and fairies, and I feel like there was like dwarves and trolls. Like there was like a bunch of different creatures in there, and they're living alongside each other. Now, one of the things that is interesting about this is that the kind of like magic folk, or they call them like stone-blooded or whatever, they are kind of treated like minorities. They are treated like they're kind of, there's a lot of segregation going on. There's a lot of kind of societal issues attached to whatever your race is. And the humans are on the top because they're the majority, right? Everybody else is kind of like treated poorly. They don't have the same rights. It's kind of one of those things where if one of them goes missing, who really cares? Except for Dead End Investigations. Yeah, exactly. Piss off the ones with magic. They're the ones with like special skills. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. But in the same way, like who knows? This seems like it could be totally realistic, and this is not the first time I've read a book where that is the case, where the stronger, smarter, older magic people are for some reason the ones who are downtrodden. They're the underdogs, and that's the exact same thing that's happening here in this setting, in this world. And it is very noir. Every single time I was picturing the world, it was, bleak and rainy and foggy and dingy everywhere. It was great. Enough villagers with torches can ruin your day. Yeah. Yeah, it was a very interesting setting. So far, very early on, a good character dynamic. It was all pretty great. The very, very first chapter also starts off great. We have the world building, we have the character introductions, and we also have the why can't I think of the word? I keep thinking instigating. The catalyst for the rest of the story. Why am I missing the phrase for that? Inciting incident. Jeez Louise. So we have the inciting incident. A goblin woman, shows up at their door. Her husband has died. They say that he died from exhaustion at the factory that he works at. And she was like, there was something wrong with him. Every time he'd come home from work, there was just, his eyes were like hollow. There was something missing from him. They were like taking his soul away from him. And so that's like the very first chapter. So it starts off with a mystery, right? Which is exactly what you want in this book. And that's in the very first chapter. It gets right into it. That was one thing that I really, really liked about this book, is that you get right into the story, too relatable. Exactly. Which you wouldn't know. And not until you get that, until you get that cubicle job. I know you're looking for text. But yeah, she's like, there was something wrong. Please look into it. I want to bring his real killers to justice, right? And so that's where we're at. It's like we have the introduction to our characters, we have the introduction to our world, and we have our inciting incident, right? We have our mystery that we're all looking to solve. And that's the first chapter. Excellent first chapter. Plot wise, I thought that it was in kind of scene setting wise, it's a really great setup for the rest of the book. I thought it was excellently done. So major props to the author on that. And then you kind of get in, as far as like pacing goes too, you get into it and it's kind of like they're working on the case. They find more evidence of things. They go to the factory. They kind of like follow this trail of things. And I thought that the pacing as it went was just like so like flat in a good way. Like it was like we were learning something new every single chapter. It was exciting. I wasn't bored at any point where I was like, they're spending too much on this thing that isn't really relevant. Everything was relevant to the plot. It seemed like the person who wrote this knew exactly where the story was going. And as they were writing it, they kind of like had it like maybe mapped out or something, because it just seemed like walking down or up steps, to get to the conclusion, rather than sometimes where it's like more of like a windy path. This was just like very, very, we're solving this mystery. We're making progress in the mystery, and then we're adding like little obstacles here and there. I just thought that it was really, really great. That's as far as like the plot goes. I think that it was well done. And anyways, I thought it was great. Let me hang on. I have all of my notes here. In the Discord, in the secret chat in the Discord is where I put all my notes for these reviews. Anyways, so my notes for chapter 1, very good opening chapter. Introduction for the setting and the characters is phenomenal. We get the noir detective in a magical environment immediately. The descriptions of the skeleton, Faust, and his half-fairy assistant, Sylvia Cooper, are really, really cool. Very creative with the smoking and the drinking and the perpetual grin. The skeleton has some senses, but not all. The world building of creatures as the minorities and how they're treated was very well done and easy to follow. Sylvia is immediately very likable, and her description is awesome. Applying the physical attributes to her personality was very well done. The hook of the case is done beautifully. I'd imagine this is how all detective stories start. I'm bought into solving the mystery with the MC. Textbook, great opener. That's my notes for chapter 1. So that's what I thought after reading the first chapter. Chapter 2, I thought said was very interesting, how the segregation is made even more obvious here. So you're getting into the, the strangeness. I hate it when my goblin husband returns from work looking like a corpse. Exactly, right? It's so relatable. It's amazing. But anyways, it's a great setup. Now, immediately, though, in the first chapter, the one thing that was so hard for me to get over on this is, one thing that was really, really hard to get over was at first I thought it was me. I was like, I've not read a noir style book before. I need to go to, and I didn't end up going to Barnes and Noble and, flipping through a few chapters of a noir book, detective book there. I should have, but I didn't have time. So I didn't do that. And I was like, is this just me, or does this seem like a lot of similes? There were, and I am not exaggerating when I say this, there was throughout this entire book, and it was a little bit less in the second half than it was in the first half. But if you read this book, there is at least one simile in nearly every single paragraph. And a lot of paragraphs have like 3 similes. And I'm not even kidding. I don't even know how the author came up with that many similes. Like, that was so many. It was just like nonstop. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I have several I'm going to read to you a paragraph, and you guys will be able, and if this author were to go through and highlight everywhere there was a simile, it would be like so much highlighted. It was a lot. And similes are so much fun to read, but it was just like I don't think I had ever I don't think I had ever read anything where it was like, whoa, how did this guy even come up with this many? So I'll read you guys a paragraph, and this was just so standard. This paragraph has 4 similes in it, and it's just one paragraph. Okay, I'll read it. Hang on. We hit 3 speakeasies before finding one that would serve a half-elf and a skeleton. The Blue Note was a basement joint in Bonewood, where hope went to drown itself in cheap hooch and broken dreams. The kind of place where the shadows had names and the lights stayed low out of mercy rather than mood. A troll bouncer with fists like cemetery headstones and a face carved from Black Ridge bedrock gave Sylvia the once-over, his stone-blood eyes lingering on her ears just long enough to make his prejudice known. Then he spotted me trailing behind her, and something like recognition flickered across his granite features. He nodded us through with the reluctance of a priest absolving a lifelong sinner. And it is so much fun. Like, it is a very it was a lot of fun reading all of the similes and the very fun creative descriptions. Like, that is so much fun. But it was so much to the point that it was hard to read. Like, it was hard for me to follow where we actually were in the plot because I was too busy reading all of these descriptions. And it wasn't like purple prose, which, if you're not familiar with what purple prose is, it's where an author seems like they are trying so hard to be like descripted through imagery or whatever, and using very flowery language. It seemed kind of, and it ruins a story because you're like, it's like it takes you out of this story because you're looking at the way it's written rather than just being part of the storytelling. I feel like it broke up the flow of the storytelling, and it really, for me, it made it hard to follow. In certain cases, I had to reread stuff and just skip over the similes and the creative descriptions to actually understand what was going understand what was going on. So that was like that's my biggest criticism of this book, was that it was like, it was, and it's hard too because it's like they're so fun. Like the like what I just read, that is so much fun. But at the same time, I'm like, wait, okay, hang on. What was actually happening, what, like, the actual descriptions were really bogged down with the creativeness of the descriptions. Am I making sense here? Where for me, it was too much. That's not a bug, it's a feature. Exactly. It was definitely on purpose, the way that they wrote this, and you can tell, like, grammatically, this person knew what they were doing. Like, I think that this author is a pretty good author. But it was just like, wow, that's a lot. And I meant to go back and read another noir to be like, is it like this with everybody else? But there's no way it could have been, because it was just, again, it was hard for me to follow because it was so interrupted by these constant similes. And I am not exaggerating when I say every single paragraph, small paragraphs, half of it was a simile. You know, it was just, if you want to check it out for yourself, you definitely should. But it was just, I'd never seen anything like it. It was crazy. But also, again, very fun, and some of them were really cool. Like the one very fun like, there was a lot of quotes where I was like, oh, that's just really good, you know. This one is because of the segregation, right? One of the sayings that he says is, this city's melting pot doesn't cool even after the fire's gone out. Meaning, and this description too was really cool, because meaning, and it's kind of funny based on context, but it was basically, even after you're dead, we're still screwing things up based on the societal issues. So anyways, I thought that it was very cool. That was one thing that was really hard for me to get over during the book, was it was way too much. It was constant. And I didn't want to bring that up until the end, but I have to, because if you go in and read chapter 1, you can't, you'll know chapter one. You'll be like, whoa, that's a lot. That's a lot. Is it supposed to be like this? And it kind of confuses things a little bit. It did to me. Maybe I'm just dumb. Maybe that's just me as a reader. I highly encourage you guys to also read this book, and let the author know what you think. Hey, nerd, I'm doing a review for the first time in like months, so I'm really excited. But anyways, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the similes were there was no breathing room for the actual story in between these similes. They were so much fun. Some of them were really cool. Some of them to me didn't really make a lot of sense. One of these was there's like some of them where I'm like, was that just a simile for simile's sake? Like I don't understand it. It says around Gimble's wrists, elbows, ankles, and knees, the skin had a strange discoloration, not bruising, but a sort of transparency. This is a simile. Like cheap gin where you should have gotten top shelf whiskey. And I was thinking, maybe I've not seen cheap gin. Is this a coloring? Is this a description of the coloring, like cheap gin, and then top shelf whiskey is a different color of a bruise? But I didn't understand that one, and there were several where I was like, like I didn't quite get it. Again, I don't claim to be the smartest woman in the world, but that one was, a few of them were just like, I don't know what they're trying to even say, and it's just breaking up the story. Maybe cheap gin is clear, top shelf whiskey is dark. Yeah, I was thinking maybe it's a coloring thing. But it seems more like a quality type of description, so I'm not sure. I actually don't know on that one. There was some repetition throughout the story, stating the exact same thing, like actually repeating exact sentences, either a couple paragraphs down or maybe a couple chapters down, which I'm guilty of when I'm editing. I will kind of rearrange things and then forget to delete what I had already said in a separate spot. So it's like the skin was a suggestion of what skin should have been. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. Another thing that I found difficult was Sylvia Cooper is his partner, right, in this PI firm. She's a lawyer. And I just found that really interesting, that a lawyer, and she was basically acting like, I don't know if it was just something's wrong with my brain, basically, that I was treating her like his assistant in my head, and she takes a lot of notes. She's handling a lot of files. In my head, she was his secretary for the longest time, and then as you finish the book, you realize, like, wait, no, she referenced a law degree several times. Why is she a lawyer? And he calls her counselor sometimes. Like, she's a lawyer working for a PI firm. Like, I can understand like a paralegal who's very good at research and understands like certain like laws to help discover like what is actually legal. And maybe that's the best job to get as a half-breed. And that is such a good point, because I think that's actually was lightly implied near in the first chapter, and then maybe near the end as well. But I think that needs to hit heavier, for sure. I just thought that was the dynamic seems strange, because he's just like an ex-cop private investigator, and meanwhile she's a lawyer with like a high education, half elf. She's very organized, she's very smart. So there was a few things where it just seemed like he was the boss, like, and he definitely was the boss. He like hired her. I just can't imagine having like a lawyer working for you in that situation when a competent secretary could do the job. I don't know. It didn't, and that's another thing, is it didn't give a lot of background on the characters themselves, which I would have loved. That would have really connected me to this story a lot more, was being connected to the characters. I'm as always. This is not new to my reviews. I'm all over the place as far as giving feedback. So author, if you're watching the VOD of this and you're trying to follow me, I apologize. I'm going to be all over the place on this story. There were a little bit of plot holes in the book. The as far as like following the case goes, like there was a accountant that they were following, and it seemed like at first he was kidnapped, but then he wasn't kidnapped, he was just missing. And then he gave clues to his own location, like, which maybe that was just me not understanding it. There were a few plot holes. Walter Finch, I thought he was just hiding out, and another employee gave him a clue to find him. There was just like clues, and it was like somebody's like actually leaving clues for this, but he didn't actually want to be found, and it ended up, not working out. Also, the Night Division had a troll cop, which I thought that there weren't any cops. Like, it didn't give any explanation on why there would be a cop that was magic. That seemed very strange to me. There was just a lot of things I would have liked some background on. As far as I wanted way more on Faust. I wanted way more on his character. I wanted more on Sylvia, although we did get a little bit more on Sylvia than we did get on Faust, but again, I would have liked a lot more on their characters and who they were and how they felt about things as we were going through the story. It didn't seem like there was any emotional connection between Faust and everything that's going on. And again, maybe that was on purpose too, because maybe he is supposed to be, he's a skeleton. So, but Sylvia reacted emotionally to a few things. So again, maybe that was on purpose. But I wanted to know so much more about Faust. He seemed like such an interesting, like he could be so interesting. And sorry if I'm closing my eyes, I'm starting to get a headache. But he seemed like such an interesting character. I would have liked to know more about his background, what made him tick, what made him start this PI firm, why does he care, stuff like that. That's what I wanted to know, stuff like that. There was just a lot more I wanted to know. Another missed opportunity was emotionally attaching us to the widow. In the first chapter, I felt like the hook was done really well. But if the author would have taken just a little bit more time to make us care more about the widow, they would have made us care more about the case, which makes us care more about the story in general. So I think that just having a little bit of emotional attachment to like describing the widow a little bit better maybe would have made us just dug our claws into the reader there. Oh, hi, Struggo. So anyways, that's what I was thinking about as far as like things that I would have done differently. Sorry, I'm getting a headache in the middle of this, and it's making me dizzy, really dizzy. Okay. The character development could have used a little bit of work, and the mystery could have been a lot more mysterious. Like, I think that the mystery was kind of spelled out even from the beginning. Like, you knew what was going on from the beginning. There were certain aspects that were a little bit sorry, my headache is killing me. Hang on. I'm gonna put on my glasses and see if that helps. Jeez Louise. It just seemed like the mystery was very obvious. I think it could have been a little bit more mysterious. But it was also fun to read, so I don't know. Oh my gosh. I have water too. Hang on. Jeez Louise. Take Excedrin. Hey, Bobicus. Okay. Um, those are like all of my notes for this story. It does. I didn't actually have a lot of notes. The what I loved about this story was such a cool. It was such a cool world. The world building was well done. It was one of those things where it wasn't just described. It was pieced out. You're starting to learn more about the way that the magic people are treated, the way that they regard each other, the way they interact with each other throughout the book, which I thought was just really well done. And for such a short book, I feel like the world building and was really great. On top of the rich people were just the worst. I thought that I loved the way that the rich were portrayed. It seemed kind of realistic. Just detached from reality, detached from humanity, ironically, because they were the humans. I thought that was very good. Again, I mentioned before, it was very well paced. Through each chapter, you're making progress on the case. There didn't seem like there was like a fluff chapter whatsoever. The action was nice. Very good pacing, good stepping stones to solving the mystery. Real, and the ending though was, I really liked the way that it ended. There was a few things that I liked about the way that it ended. It's not like, oh, and then they solved the case and all the bad guys went to jail. Oh, did you liked reading along? That's what you get, Patreon exclusive. So normally I make these notes in my note field on my book, but now you guys you get live live notes on my book review notes. So a lot of this stuff probably only makes sense to me, but I'm sure that you're going to, that you understood some of it. But yeah, you can see all of my notes as I was taking it. I didn't take a ton of notes. It was a short book, but also I just didn't take a ton of notes on this book because I didn't. And it's funny too because I didn't write down everything that I liked about the book. For the most part, I just write down like suggestions, observations, anything specific that I wanted to make sure I called out during my review. I'd write down. But anyways, these are my notes. So I hope you guys like it. Okay, bye, Max. Or hello. I know you've been here, but anyways. So anyways, the ending of this book I thought was very satisfying. Of course they solved the mystery. Of course, they get some form of justice, but they didn't get everybody that was guilty in the death of a lot of these magic creatures. So, and it seemed like a really good way. So this book to me seemed like the first episode of a show, like a long running show. You're introducing the character, you're introducing the world, you're, solving a mystery that gets tied up quickly, but there's kind of this big bad guy that I would expect the hero and the heroine to have, to be working towards that case for the rest of the season or perhaps the rest of the series, right? So you're trying to take on the Black Ridge elite who are just really evil and get away with everything. So that was, I thought, a really cool, satisfying and intriguing ending. It made me think that if this is like a volume type of thing where this is just like episode 1 of a bigger thing, I would want to read episode 2. I would want to read the next case that they go to solve and how that applies to what's going on with the Black Ridge elite and their whole thing. So anyways, great ending. I really liked the way that it ended, especially with Sylvia. I liked the details added to Sylvia. Like, I really liked the ending. And it's so hard to write a good ending. And I liked it. I really liked the ending. And it's so hard to write them good like that. It was just like open for more, for sure. Satisfying, realistic. It wasn't all tied up in a neat bow, but it was just good enough. Anyways, for author, if you're watching this, bravo on that ending. It's hard to pull stuff like that off. So great job. I'm sorry that I spent so much time talking about the overuse of similes. It did make it hard for me to read, but it really was, as far as this book goes, I think that it was a good book. it was just difficult for me to read because of the overuse of the descriptions. Other than that, though, as far as my first noir detective novel, I think it was very good. So good job. Great world building. I like Faust. I would have liked more on Faust. I really liked Sylvia. I think that her character is well described. And the more details you provide on your characters, the more we'll be emotionally attached to them, and the more we'll be emotionally attached to your book. I mean, people who are reading a book and they're emotionally attached to the characters are kind of going to be obsessed with your book. I mean, that's where fan fiction comes from. That's where you get the cult following. Like, that's you got to make sure that people love your characters. Because that's where you have a good book, right? You can have a great plot. People love a good plot, obviously. But if you have a great plot and characters that, you don't really care that much about, I don't think people are going to like your book. Meanwhile, if you have a crappy plot but characters you just love, you might still love that book. I mean, maybe that's just me, but I think characters are the most important thing in your book. I think that you have a great deck of characters, but I want more on Faust. I want more on what makes him tick. I want more on his personality. I want more on his motivations. Sylvia, I think, is great. I mean, she's not the main character. She's a secondary character, and I feel like we get a lot more on her than we do on Faust. And maybe that's because Faust is the observer, and it's through his POV that we get more on him, and he's not really looking inward. But some observations about himself, or maybe some stuff where the reader could put it together, why he is feeling the way he's feeling, would have been very, very fun for me to read. I was interested in him. I loved the physical descriptions of him as a skeleton. I thought that was very cool. Very cool. You don't read much more anymore, but I previously slogged through some very poorly written fanfics for the love of the characters. Yes, it's almost like Faust is an empty shell. No, but he I want to know the whys behind what he does, other than just the very obvious ones. I want to know why he's emotionally attached to helping these people. It doesn't seem like it's for much money. I mean, he's hard up. It's described in the first chapter that he doesn't have a ton of money, but anyways, good job, author. I think that you did great. I haven't read any of your other work. You've been writing for a very long time, and I think that through your writing style, it definitely shows that you do know what you're doing. Don't just take my advice, by the way, on the similes. Definitely get a second opinion on that. That could just be me. To me, it seemed excessive, and it was hard for me to follow. But I would ask somebody who reads a lot of noir detective books for their opinion before you change anything, if you are planning on editing or changing anything. But yeah, I think that's my general notes on the entire book. This is one of my quicker reviews, actually. Normally I go off forever on the book. And if you have any questions whatsoever, you can either join the Discord, and I would love to talk to you on Discord. You can reach out to me on Reddit. I'm an old lady. It's hard for me to learn how to use new apps. But I am figuring out Reddit a little bit. It is actually hard for me. So if you reach out to me on Reddit, I may not reply, or I may not figure out how to get to my messages. Like, there's a chat function here. Which is different than where you were messaging me, which is in my notifications. So I have messages, and then I have chats. I don't know the difference. Anyways, if you reach out to me, Discord is preferred. If you have a Discord, you can join the Discord, which I provided a link. I provided a link in my Reddit post, but you can reach out to me on Reddit, and I will respond. Or you can find me on Royal Road. And I think my name's Missy Reads on Royal Road. Hold up, let me find out. Yeah, Missy Reads on Royal Road. You can message me on there too, I think, if there's messaging on Royal Road. Again, I'm new to Royal Road, so I may not reply. In fact, funny story, I don't know how to use I was still learning how to use the messaging for some reason on Royal Road. And I got in there and I looked at my messages and I was like, Oh my gosh, I have an old message from Cherry. It's from like months ago. And it said, and the message was making an effort to use this app more. Already great authors on here. And I was like, oh, Cherry messaged me. And then I messaged her back and I was like, I just got this. Did I send this to you? And then I realized, like, no, this is a message from me to Cherry. And so I responded to myself. I felt like such a grandma in that moment. Oh my goodness. Anyways, I do know how to use Discord though. So hit me up on Discord if you have questions, if you want to follow up, or you can hit me in the comments on YouTube, which I could figure out how to use. Again, I'm not the best at it. I am good at checking my Discord though. So hit me on Discord if you have any questions. Other than that, thanks for letting me read and review your book. I know you were anxious about it, so I hope I didn't hit it too hard. I do think that you have a really cool book. I think you have cool characters. I think you have a really cool plot. Like, I hope that was made clear. I'm sorry I got like a headache right before this started. I took Tylenol. It didn't work that well after me saying how much it worked, but it did affect my attention span on that. So anyways, I haven't figured out how the DMs work. Oh, nice. So it wasn't just me. That's great, Cherry. Anyways, thank you, Ink Magus, for allowing me to read and review your book. I really appreciate it. Does anybody have anything else that that they want to add at all? Because I haven't been great about checking on the chat. But before I close out the VOD for this, so I can make the YouTube, does anything have anything they want to say to the author? I'll give it like 1 minute, and then I'm gonna say like, okay, we're done with this. Anybody have some commentary for the author? Digimon Lord of the Rings crossover fanfic is crazy. You have nothing book related. Oh, Bobicus, thank you. If Bobicus is saying that, believe in yourself, which I think is very good advice. Definitely always trust your creative vision as the author. Not everybody is going to get it, but as long as you get it, you know. So anyways, I enjoyed it. And bye, author. I'm going to close out the VOD now.